The company that owns this was given the opportunity to remediate it, and of course, as we saw here today, a lot of it hasn't happened. Interestingly enough, when word got out that we would be visiting here, within 48 hours, a bunch of work crews started showing up to do some cosmetic work. And yet, despite that, I just left an apartment that hasn't been painted in 13 years, where a small child that lives in a room where the walls look like they haven't been painted in 15 years. And then we visited another apartment where the room, there's no functional window. The window doesn't open. The window sill had broken. They came in and basically put glue to hold it together, but the window doesn't open. If there's a fire, this child could get trapped in there. And here's why. Here's the model. The model is you start a C4, a not-for-profit entity, so you don't have to pay property tax. Of course, you're making a salary off of it. You're collecting all of these sorts of contributions from the Section 8, and you do the minimal amount of maintenance possible, and you hope no one complains. And then what you do is you find a couple of tenants that live in there and you give them some extra special care. And in return, they become the spokesperson for the company in the building. And they try to keep people like us out. And the only thing that's a shame is that it took even longer to find this out, and had it not been for the courage of some of the tenants involved now, who were not afraid and were not intimidated and brought this to the attention of public officials, would it ever reach this level. This existing company, they have 11 other properties in the area. They have over 60 properties around the country. When I get back to Washington Monday, my hope is that we'll have all of those properties examined and these people put out of business, because what they do to people is outrageous. It's a slumlord, pure and simple. And my hope is we can even get the Justice Department interested in this a little bit and see how people are being treated this way. And obviously the councilman, the mayor, and the tenants have been working really hard at this, and I want to give them an opportunity to talk about it as well.
I just want to first thank the senator for being here, and also note that the senator and his team were on this the moment we were made aware of this and came out here. The real story is that the tenants, Tracey stood up and said, we're not going to be intimidated. These living conditions are unacceptable, and we're going to fight for our right to live the way people are supposed to live. So again, you're the heroes out here. As I've said before to the ownership, we're not going away. As evidence, we've got our senator here, United States Senator here. We are not going away until these people are cared for and loved for in the way that they ought to be.
Again, I just want to echo the mayor. Want to thank you, Senator, for coming to shed a national light on the issue. It's much bigger than Eureka Gardens, but the real story are the tenants, and because these tenants came together, showed courage, they brought all of us together. And because of Eureka Gardens, now the light is going to be shined on the entire system. It's a systemic problem, like the senator said, and because of the real heroes here, a difference is going to happen here at Eureka Gardens, but not just Eureka Gardens, over the entire system. So at this time, I want to just introduce Tracey Grant, who's the president of the Tenant Association, who's been one of the leading voices here, as well as Pastor Griffin, whose church that's right by here, that's really been standing behind and standing with these tenants, as well as where's Martha Cox? Martha Cox in the back with Family Foundation. Again, you see, I'm Garrett Dennis. I'm the city councilman for this area. I represent this area. And what you see government, and you see citizens, you see community coming together for a change. But again, the real hero here are the tenants of Eureka Garden and Tracey Grant.
What about Gail?
And Gail Thomas.
First off, I want to thank all of you for allowing us to be able to speak and let everybody know what's going on. I want to thank Pastor Griffin, Mayor Curry, Councilman Dennis, and Mr. Senator Rubio. I want to thank them all, because if we didn't speak up, or at least just one of us didn't speak up, then none of this wouldn't happen today. I got tired because I'm not used to this at all. And when I was given the opportunity to say something, I said it. If I had to do this all over again, I would do it the same way. Nothing different. not just the city of Jacksonville will see. The whole world. The whole world. And anybody that wants to step up and do the same exact thing what I did, you can do it. You just have to have faith the size of a mustard seed. The faith the size of a mustard seed. Just to get someone to hear you. That's all it takes.
How do you feel about them being here?
Unexplainable. Unexplainable. I'm thankful, I'm grateful. I have no true words.
Did you imagine 8 months ago when you and I first met, before the mayor and the councilman came, and then you've got the senator here, could you have imagined then how far this could have gone?
No. No, and I can only imagine how far it will go at this point. So.
Do you think the owners are scared now?
I would. If I was them, I would.
Tracey, why was Alvin Brown aware of this when he was mayor? It seems like he would have to be, because he'd been out here for community empowerment days and so on.
If he knew and he didn't do anything, then I don't know, but I'm hurt that he didn't recognize it and pay attention to what was going on.
Senator Rubio, can you tell us what it was about Eureka Gardens that made you want to get involved?
Well, I mean, first, my staff first found about it when it was first reported in the press here in October, and I think they came out and visited it at the time, and the conditions were really bad, and we were following it through that process. And look, our initial hope was, okay, we found it, the owners are going to take ownership of this, and they're going to get it fixed. That's the ideal circumstance, because you don't want to see, 800 people, 400 families evicted. There's not anywhere to take them right away. So our hope was that they would respond responsibly. That was our hope. Not to make a spectacle out of it, but to get it fixed. It didn't happen. In fact, it's been delay after delay after delay. Where we really ramped up our activity is when HUD came out here for a second time and inspected the property and passed it again. And I said to myself, well, how can it be that HUD, Housing and Urban Development, certifies that this property is habitable, given the conditions we've seen here today? And so that's what really got our efforts ramped up to hopefully do three things. Number one, change the criteria. We need to change this system that they use for judging these properties, because clearly this property is not habitable for humans. Second is to change these contracts so that we have more leverage over these owners. And third is examine how many other places are there like this, because this model they've put in place is a slumlord model. They set up a C4, which is a not-for-profit, so they don't have to pay property taxes, but they're making a salary along with people associated with them. They take over this building, they get money for each of these residents from the federal government every month, and then instead of buying a new refrigerator, they put the money in their pocket. And that's what they've done here for a long time, and it's an outrage. These people should never be allowed to have another contract from HUD again, and quite frankly, I honestly hope, and I'm going to ask the Justice Department to look into this company and look at the way they're spending federal money, because I think you can make the argument that they have stolen taxpayer money that was supposed to be used to provide for these people, and instead have used it for their own gain.
So are you calling for a possible criminal investigation?
Absolutely. Absolutely. These people have gotten paid for by the federal government from taxpayer money. They get money every month. And that money is supposed to be used to maintain these apartments. And you have apartments here. I just saw one that hadn't been painted in the 13 years they've lived there. So where did the money that was supposed to go towards maintenance go? It went into their pocket. A supposed charity, but it's nothing but a scam, and they're nothing but slumlords.
So you met with Secretary Castro this
I did,
week.
on Tuesday.
Did you talk to him about this property in particular?
I did, and I know the mayor has, and went up and visited with him, and I spoke to Secretary Castro about it on the phone earlier. And, in fairness to him, he inherited this criteria that's being used to judge this. So one of the things he said is they're going to look into changing the criteria to take into account things like bed bugs and mold and other things that aren't getting enough points on the system it's being judged by. The other thing is we're going to have to redo the contract, because right now the only two options they have are to take the contract away or continue the contract. There's no in between. There's not a lot of options here. And one of the suggestions I had is to require Section 8 housing providers to post bond, to have a bond that they have to secure, so that if they violate the contract, the federal government can collect against that bond in order to use that money to pay for the upgrades that are necessary. Right now, we have nothing to collect against. Ultimately, the ideal outcome at this point is for the owners of this property to give it to someone else.
Senator Rubio, the mayor and your staff and other city officials came out here earlier back in October to tour this property. Why were you out here then? Why just your staff?
Well, again, at the initial stages of this, we come across cases like this all across the country, all across the state. And that's why we have offices in these places, is so that they can come out and get involved. And our initial goal in all this was not to create a media spectacle out of it. Our initial goal was to get with HUD, to get with the owners, and hopefully provide enough pressure or attention to get them to act. That was my hope, that they would actually act, that they would look at it and say, okay, we got a problem, let's get it fixed and taken care of. They basically haven't. It's been since October until now. And so finally, when that second criteria came out for grading, which we hoped would have showed the property has failed and triggered other remedies, when that happened, that's when we felt like we needed to come out and amp it up a little bit more.
What do you have to say to HUD, being that they passed this facility again for a second time in a row? What do you have to say to HUD?
Their grading system is broken. And I think the Secretary is aware of that. It doesn't take into account the sorts of things we saw here today, or it doesn't give it enough account. And so that's how you can get a passing score. So that whole thing needs to be re-examined. And I think the Secretary says he's open to doing that.
So you told a GMF representative, right, when you took your first step on the property today, you said, I want you to know what you've done here is horrifying.
It is, yeah.
I mean, what would you say to Reverend Hamlet, and do you feel like he should have been here today?
Well, I don't have anything to say to him other than what he's done is horrifying. I hope he gives these properties up. And we're now going to look hopefully at the other properties that he owns, because there's no sense here that this is isolated. If this is the way they practice business, the likelihood is you're going to find these conditions in other places. It's our understanding that in fact there are other buildings around the country where they've had similar problems. I would say that their C4 status as some sort of a ministry that's providing charitable care is laughable. It is just a way to avoid paying taxes.
Mayor Curry, if I can ask you a couple of questions. Being that this structure is here in Jacksonville, what do you want to say to the residents and to the community here that has to endure these conditions?
I mean, it's sad. I mean, this is my city. We're brothers and sisters in this city, and the first time I saw these conditions, the councilman told me before I showed up here, he said, be prepared, you're probably going to cry. And I said, okay, we'll see. And he was right. I mean, we saw some pretty rough conditions today, but we've seen much worse out here. So continue. You spoke truth today. It was powerful. People can stand up. If residents in any HUD facility are unafraid, stand up, make your voice be heard, hold elected officials accountable, hold your mayors accountable, hold your city council representatives accountable, make them get involved. And if they push back and say this is a federal issue, say, okay, this is my city and we're not going to tolerate this. And while folks like Martha and Mark were out here long before there were any cameras doing the hard work, now the cameras are being used for a good and just cause because you guys put the hard work in early, and we're gonna keep the pressure on.
Have you spoke to Reverend Hamlet recently? Why is he not out here doing?
It's been a couple of months since I spoke with him. I've invited him to come spend a week out here. Why don't you come spend the night? Why don't you bring your whole family?
What commentary do you have on the portfolio being listed for sale, including Jacksonville properties from GMF?
That's a win. And we're going to make sure that we are close enough to the process to ensure that new ownership is not in fact a slumlord, as the senator said, and is not in fact a part of this scheme to get rich off of poverty.
So actually on that note, a GMF source told us that they are in a, quote, bidding war over these properties because they're, quote, so lucrative and profitable under HUD. Have you had any kind of contact with the real estate agent to at all be involved in who these owners might be in this bidding war?
We've communicated with HUD. The councilman has been actively involved in this as well. We'll make sure that we as city officials are close to this deal. But look, this is about making sure people have a place to live that is safe, that is clean. I've said this before, the same kind of place that me and my family would feel comfortable living in. That's what every single HUD facility and home should be like. It should be a home.
Can I add something to that? So you just said that the GMF people called you and said there's a bidding war because this place is so profitable. Well, number one, I thought they were not for profit. And number two, if it's so profitable, then what do they do with all the money they profited? Because it didn't go to new refrigerators, and it didn't go to paint jobs, and it didn't go to improving this facility. So there's the question. If this is such a excellent economic model that they're making so much money on, then where's the money? Because it hasn't been reinvested in here.
Senator,
Okay,
are you
question.
going to pressure the GOP nominee, apparently Donald Trump, to actually do HUD reform on this? What are your next steps? Because you're out of office next year.
I hope you'll turn this into a world-class facility.
All right, thank you.
Good close.